Kato Kalin shot to fame 20 years ago during the O.J. Simpson murder trial. He was the famous house guest staying at O.J.'s place. He was also a star witness.
The story of O.J. Simpson was supposed to end on a single day in 1995 with a not guilty verdict that shocked the world. But for many, that day wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a different, more unsettling mystery. Nearly 30 years later, new details and forgotten evidence have surfaced, painting a much darker picture of what truly happened. This isn't just a story about guilt or innocence. It's about the truths that were buried, ignored, or simply erased. Because when you look closely at the evidence, the mystery of O.J. Simpson seems to be finally solved, and the truth is not what most people expected. The timeline of that terrible night in 1994 is a good place to start. On June 12th, the quiet streets of Brentwood, California, were shattered by a brutal crime. Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman were found stabbed to death outside her home. The evidence began to point in one direction almost immediately toward O.J. Simpson. A neighbor heard Nicole's dog barking frantically at around 10:15 p.m., which many believe was the exact moment of the attack. Just minutes later, O.J. was seen returning to his home, which was only a 10-minute drive away. A limo driver named Alan Park arrived at O.J.'s home at 10:35 p.m. to take him to the airport. But O.J. was nowhere to be found. The driver waited for a long time, and then he saw a shadowy figure about O.J.'s size walking toward the house. O.J. finally appeared much later, claiming he had just been in the shower. This strange timeline, where O.J. was unaccounted for at the very moment the murders likely happened, was a major point of suspicion. The evidence found at both the crime scene and O.J.'s home was also hard to ignore. Police found a bloody glove, a knit cap, and footprints leading away from Nicole's condo. But the most damning evidence was the blood itself. DNA tests later proved that blood found on a glove at O.J.'s property, on his socks, and on his driveway matched the blood of Nicole, Ron, and O.J. himself. A fresh cut on O.J.'s finger, which police noticed shortly after the murders, only added to the suspicion. During the trial, O.J.'s defense team attacked this evidence by arguing that police had mishandled samples and that the evidence was contaminated. These arguments created enough doubt in the jury's minds to lead to an acquittal, but for many people, the facts of the timeline and the blood evidence were simply too strong to be dismissed. Beyond the crime scene, O.J.'s actions after the murders were equally strange. The famous low-speed police chase on June 17, 1994, was not the act of an innocent man. As millions watched on television, O.J. rode in a white Ford Bronco with his friend, holding a gun to his head and threatening to end his life. Inside the Bronco, police found a loaded gun, cash, his passport, and a disguise. Things you would expect a man on the run to have, not someone planning to surrender. But the most important piece of evidence was missing the murder weapon. The knife used to stab Nicole and Ron was never found. This led to questions about a small duffel bag that O.J. was seen with that night. Multiple witnesses, including his limo driver and his house guest Kato Kalin, said O.J. was unusually protective of this one small bag. Later, a man at the airport claimed he saw O.J. drop something long from the bag into a public trash can. If O.J. got rid of the knife in that trash can, it would have been incinerated within hours, erasing the most critical piece of evidence forever. Years after the verdict, people close to O.J. began to speak out. His former agent and friend, Mike Gilbert, claimed that O.J. had confessed to the murders in a detached, cold way one night while he was drunk. Another friend, former L8 officer Ron Shipp, testified that O.J. had told him he had dreams of slaying her. Shipp also knew about the domestic abuse Nicole had suffered, having seen her bruises firsthand. This pattern of abuse in O.J.'s chilling dream seemed to many to be a disguised confession. But perhaps the most damning piece of all came in 2006, when O.J. released a book titled, If I Did It, though it was presented as a hypothetical story. The book was filled with precise details about the murders that only someone who was there could have known. He described the crime with a disturbing clarity and even talked about blacking out during the attack. The book was a chilling look into his mind, And for many, it served as a confession hidden in plain sight. For all the talk about O.J. himself, there is another theory that has gained traction over time. Private investigator Bill Deere believes that O.J.'s son, Jason Simpson, may have been the one to commit the murders. Deere's theory points to Jason's history of mental health issues, violent outbursts, and a known proficiency with knives. He claims that Jason's alibi for that night was based on a forged time card, and that Jason was known to wear a knit cap similar to the one found at the crime scene. In this theory, would have arrived at the scene after his son had committed the crime, and then spent the rest of the night, and the days that followed covering it up. While this theory is speculative, it offers a possible explanation for some of O.J.'s strange behavior and his almost surgical silence on certain details. The original trial's outcome was also shaped by forces beyond the evidence itself. The city of Los Angeles was still recovering from the riots that followed the Rodney King verdict, where police officers were acquitted despite video evidence of them beating a black motorist. Against this backdrop, O.J.'s defense team masterfully turned the trial from a case about homicide into a case about police racism. When Detective Mark Foreman, who found the bloody glove, was revealed to be a racist who had lied under oath, the prosecution's case fell apart. The jury's verdict was not just for O.J., but for many, it was a moment of justice against a police force that had a history of mistreating black people. This is why O.J. was acquitted in the criminal trial, but later found responsible for the wrongful deaths of Nicole and Ron in a civil trial. The O.J. Simpson case may never be officially closed, and the knife used in the murders may never be found. But with all of these pieces of evidence, the strange timeline, the blood, the missing bag, the confessions, and the Jason Simpson theory, a clear picture begins to emerge. It's a picture that suggests that the truth about that night was right in front of us the whole time,